Hey guys, welcome to this session on how to use Pycharm by Intellipaat. Pycharm is by far one of the most popularly used IDEs, especially for Python as a language, but it can be a little difficult to get started with. So keeping that in mind, we've come up with this session to demystify the core concepts of Python and help you get started with the IDE to help you improve your productivity as a Python programmer. So let's get started, but before we begin, do click on the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to never miss another update. So let's take a look at the agenda for this session. We'll begin by understanding what is an IDE. We'll begin by taking a look at what IDEs are and what can an IDE do for you. Then we'll take a look at the benefits of using an IDE. We'll take a look at some of the most popular IDEs available as of now. Then we'll have an introduction to PyCharm and how PyCharm can help you. And then finally, we'll have a demo in which we'll take a look at how to install Python, how to use Python in your day-to-day coding practices. So let's begin with the session. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat section and our team is there to help you out. So what is an IDE? An IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So it is a software application that contains several tools for helping programmers to write, edit, and evaluate their code. So think of it this way. Whenever you're writing code, you need several applications to work together. Things like code editors to write code and save files, compilers to compile the files, to run the files. If you are writing tests, then you need test runners. If you are trying to take a look at the memory consumption of your application, you might be using a profiler. There are many other tools that you can use. For instance, checking the memory leaks, and all of these things can be done using several tools, but they are all interspersed in the coding world. So to bring them all together, what you can do is you can use an application like Integrated Development Environment. So Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, is just a term used to describe such an application, and these kinds of applications are available for a lot of programming languages including Python. So what are the benefits of using an IDE? So let's take a look at them. So there are several benefits of using an IDE or an Integrated Development Environment. Let's take a look at them one by one. So firstly, it allows for rapid development. IDEs provide some really great tools for you to write and edit code in quite a speedy way. They allow you to define code snippets so that you can write just a few keystrokes and expand the code and then fill out the important details. It reduces boilerplate coding. They allow you to generate files. They also allow you to do syntax completion. So if you're typing a long name for a variable or a function or a class, you can just type the first few letters of the entire name and the suggestion will appear, or whether or not you want to use it is up to you. Then comes enforced standards. So many development environments allow you to use something called a linter. Or a linter does is it takes a look at your code and it takes a look at a standard that has been set by a company or maybe by you, and it checks whether the code is following those standards. So these standards could be not more than 80 characters on a line, small method names or large method names, methods that are not more than 6 lines in definition. There could be many other standards that you could use. Many companies use these standards to make sure that the code is clean, it's readable, and many companies also enforce standards such as writing documentation, without which your compiler might not even compile your code. So these standards can be set up depending on what your requirements are. If it's just for taking a look at clean code, or whether it's more than clean code, it's more about tooling and all. So these standards can be enforced using an IDE. Then comes easy configuration. You can mold an IDE, especially there are many IDEs that are really easy to configure to your needs. You can change almost anything about many IDEs that you use, going from font to the user interface, configuration about the compilers and interpreters. You can take a look at a lot of things, and you can change all of these things depending on your needs. They do come with a sensible default, but these defaults might not work for you, so you can change them at your own pace. And then comes project management. If you're dealing with multiple projects, then dealing with them without an IDE could be a little difficult. Let's say that your project contains several sub-projects as well. So these kinds of problems can be really difficult to keep track of, and IDEs can help you with that as well. They allow you to export configurations for projects so that you can share that with everyone around your team and they can use the same thing again. Now, another thing that project management that comes under project management is version control system. So things like Git, GitHub, Subversion, Mercurial, all of these things, they also come under project management, and many IDEs, including Pycharm, have a really good support for using Git and Subversion and Mercurial and other kinds of version control systems. Let's take a look at some of the most popular IDEs. So here are some of the most popular IDEs. As you can see, that's Pycharm, it's IntelliJ, which is also from the same company of JetBrains. Then comes Eclipse. Eclipse is more popular for Java development, but it's not really necessary that it can only be used for Java development. For instance, if you want to use Eclipse with Python, there's an extension called PyDev, PYDEV, that could be really, really helpful if you are proficient with Eclipse, you know the shortcuts, and you want to use Eclipse for Python development. So for that, you can use PyDev extension. It's a little typical to install, but if you've already worked with Eclipse before, then you already know how to install it. And once you do, you can use Python with Eclipse. Visual Studio comes with a built-in support for Python. So if you want to use, and if you want to install some additional templates and other things like that, they are also available via the use of plugins. Then comes Komodo IDE. It's also very popular, especially in the Python community. So you can use that as well. Then there's RStudio. It's not for Python, but it's used with R. So it's very useful in that regard. And then as you can see comes PHP Storm. So PHP Storm is something that many web developers use, and since many of these IDEs are free and many of these are not free, and when they are not free, then you need to either download a community version, which is a version of the IDE that comes with limited set of features, which are helpful for you when you get started, or you can buy the pro version or the premium version. Many IDEs have different terms for these, or at the end of the day, you can also apply for a student's license, which if you are a student, they can give it to you either for free or for a much reduced cost. So you can take a look at that as well. Then comes introduction to Python. So let's take a look at what Pycharm is. So Pycharm is an IDE for Python language. It has been developed and maintained by JetBrains. It's currently under active development. New versions are being released every now and then, and new patches are being released every now and then as well. It is one of the most popular IDEs, especially for Python. If you're a Python developer and you are writing code for Python and you're working in large corporations, chances are you have already come across Pycharm. And Pycharm is really, really good for writing code in such a manner. Pycharm has got some really great features. It's got some really good plugins as well that you can use for your Python code. You can enforce standards. You can do a lot of things. Let's have a demo and we'll see how to use Pycharm. So if you want to use Pycharm, the first thing you have to do is you have to download Pycharm. Now it's very easy. Go to Google, and first thing you have to do is you have to download Python. So you can go to python.org, click on downloads, and download the latest version. Mine is 64-bit Windows. So it already gives me that version to download. And if you don't find the version you want to download, you can scroll around and get the version that you want to. Downloading the latest stable version would be the best way to go. After you have installed Python, you can install Pycharm by downloading it. So you can just search for Pycharm. Click on the download link that is given to you in your Google search. When the link opens, it will show you multiple options to download. One of them is the professional version and the other one is the community version. So the professional version is quite useful, especially for those who need the premium features that come with Pycharm. And for those of you who don't really need the premium features, just want to try it out, just want to make sure that you get the basics of Pycharm correctly, then you can download it using the community version. The community version is extremely easy to install and really easy to use, and it's free. And the professional version, although it's not free, gives you a free 30 days trial. So you can use that. It's available for both Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'm using Windows, so I have downloaded Community Edition and I have installed it. Installing it is really easy. So let me just open it for you. I've already installed it, so I'm not going to go with the installation again. But if you want to install it, just open the installer and it will work just fine. After you install it, it gives you the option of opening the Pycharm IDE right there. As you open it, it gives you the opportunity to create a project. If you already have a project, and bear in mind that this has to be a Pycharm project. A Pycharm project basically is a folder with a .idea folder in it that contains all the configuration that Pycharm will use. So you don't need to worry about that. You don't have to use these. You don't have to edit those files yourself. But if you don't already have a Pycharm project, then I would suggest you create one using create new project, which is what I will do. Now, this is just the basic setting. If you want to take a look at some advanced settings, you can take a look at here. Now, you can take a look at the environment that you can use. If you are working with scientific computation, you can take a look at Conda. pipenv is for creating a virtual environment using virtualenv or pipenv. I like using pipenv. It allows you to isolate your dependencies. So if you're trying to use some library such as Django or Flask, but you already have it installed, and now for this project you want to use some new version, you can use a virtual environment in which all the libraries you install will stay in that library, and that for that project only. No other project would be able to access those libraries. So you can use that. And you can take a look at the interpreter. I have Python 3.7. I have Python 3.7, and you can also take a look at Anaconda's distribution of Python if you have and you want to use that. So with that selected, if you have an existing interpreter and you don't want to use the current interpreter, you can just click here and browse for it and then use it. But as of now, I'll be using the base interpreter that Pycharm has already detected for me. I need to change the name of the project. I'll call it Intellipaat demo. I have used pipenv because I find it really easy to use, but it's your choice. If you want to use virtualenv, you can use that. If you want to use Conda as your development environment, you can use that as well. It's totally up to you. Click on create, and the first time you use it, it will take a little bit of a time because it's setting up a virtual environment for you, and virtual environment takes some time. So as I had already created say demos like this, it will create a virtual environment for me, and if it already finds a virtual environment, it will just use that virtual environment. As you can see, it's creating the virtual environment. So let's just wait for a few seconds, and when it gets done, we'll get started with the next steps. Now, if it's just a new installation, then it could take a little bit of time for you. And if you have already installed it and if you have already used it, then it might not take that much of a time. So don't worry about it. It will just take a few moments. And when it does, it will open everything up and it will start creating something called indexes. So let me just tell you what indexes are. They are basically things that your Pycharm IDE will create so that it's easy for it to scan the entire project and find files. So that, as you can see, it's launching the skeleton generator. Everything can be seen here. It's discovering the module, reloading the generated skeleton. Skeleton is basically the project structure that it has generated for us. Now it's telling us that it's indexing, which is basically it's taking a look at scanned projects, and it's taking a look at all the files that we have, so that when we try and scan something or search something for it, will be able to much more speed and accuracy. So now that that is done, we can use Python for whatever we want to use. So as you can see, this is the folder that I have. I can click on this arrow to expand it. As of now, since I used pip, I only have pip file. If I open it, this is what it looks like, and it's giving me an option to install a plugin that will help me to get syntax highlighting and better support for pip files. I don't need to do that right now. I'll show you how to install packages in a moment. But first, let me just create a file and show you how to run it. To create a file, right click on the project that you want to create a file in, go to new, and I want to create a Python file, and since it's giving me that option, I'll just create on Python. This has to be a Python file, not a Python unit test file, not a Python stub. So I'll just create a Python file. I'll name it main, and I'll press enter after giving it the name. If I don't give it the name, then I won't be able to create any files. It'll create one for me. Now, as you can see, this is fine, but the code editor looks fine. It's working fine. If I type something, as you can see, it's working fine. The problem that I have as of now is that the text is really, really small. So let me show you how to customize Python to your own taste. So go to settings by clicking on file. Once this appears, you can take a look at a lot of things. It opens with the editor setting, but you can take a look at a lot of things. If you want to search for some setting, like let's say font, click here and it'll show you all the things that you care about. I need to change the editor font, so I have that here. Now it is by default using the JetBrains mono font, but I want to use Fira code, and I want to increase the font size, let's say to 18. Let's say to 16, and for line spacing I can take a look at this as well, and as you can see, I get this nice preview right underneath it. So after doing that, I can also enable ligatures. So enabling ligatures basically means that it will allow the code to dictate how it wants certain symbols to look. So if I disable the ligatures, as you can see, that not equal to will look like an exclamation point and then an equal to symbol, but if I enable the ligatures, then it looks something like this. So the font will now dictate how certain combinations of symbols should look like. I click on apply, and then I click on OK, and now as you can see the font has been changed. Now you can play around with it a bit, but it works fine. Now let me just write some Python code and then execute it so you can see that it works. So the first thing I'll do, and as you can see I have syntax highlighting, so if I type in name and I get the suggestion that I want, and I want it to be equal to main. Now if you don't understand this, don't worry, this is just some simple Python code, and I'll even show you some resources through which you can learn Python if you want to get started with Python, and you can already see how we can use Pycharm. So I'll just create a function named main, and here I'll just move the code. For those of you who are wondering, I'm using the shift key and then moving things around. So if I use shift and then press down key, Pycharm will automatically insert the pass keyword, but I don't want that, so I'll just do it here. So now what will happen is my script will get executed. It'll take a look at the file name, and it'll take a look at an internal variable called name, which automatically gets set. So if I use this file to execute every other file, then I'll get main, and then it'll execute this function and it will print hello. So to do that, there are many ways I can do it. I can just click here and run it, or I can go to run, click on run, which is here. I click here, I want to run main, and it will run it for me, and as you can see it's printed hello, and the process exited with the code of 0, which means everything went successful. Now let me show you what else you can do. Let's say that this is not just one file and you use multiple files. So I create another file in which I'll create a configuration class. Let's say configuration helper. Okay, this will be the name of a Python file. I click insert. I'll type in some code, configuration helper. Firstly, I'll define a constructor, and in a moment I'll tell you how I'm doing this. So just type in, as you can see, let me just show you again. I type 2 underscores. It shows me all the things that I can do. I press the tab key. It automatically does everything for me. And now I'll just print constructor. Okay. So now if I want to go back to this file, let's say I have multiple files and I've closed this file, first thing you can do is press the shift key twice. So shift 1, shift 2, and you need to do it really fast. And then as you can see, recently opened files are showing here, but if I want to open a file, just type main. It will show me the main method as well as the main file. So let's say that I want to go to the method wherever it's declared. It's showing me the file name right beside the function name as well. I press enter and it automatically takes me to that function. Now that that is done, let me just import it. So I need from configuration helper, import configuration helper. I'm using the control and space key together. So hold down control and press space to get automatic completion. And after doing that, all I have to do is create, let's say, an object out of it. This gets done. So now what will happen is if I run this, I can run it from here, and you can take a look at some of the shortcuts as well, which is Control Shift F10 if you want to run it. So the constructor gets run first and hello gets put second. Now as you can see, I have made a spelling mistake, which is deliberate because I want to show you some of the other features of Pycharm. But first, if I want to go to that file again, hold down control key and then hover over that class name. I click on that class and I am immediately taken to this file in which I have declared this. Now as you can see, I have mistyped the name. So as you can see, it's already giving me an option to do something about it. But another thing I can do, and I want to show you this, is select the class name, right click. There's something called ThreeFactor. So if you can see, it's here, and then it also gives a shortcut key, which is Shift F10. Click on rename, and I want to rename it wherever I can. And in the project files, you can click on all places as well, so that it can take a look at all the places available to Pycharm and rename anything that's named like this to configuration helper. So as you can see, configuration helper. Now I can click on preview and it will show me all the changes that it will make. So these are the files in which the changes will be made. Click on do refactor. Now it has changed it here, but it has also found out that I'm referencing configuration helper in the main.py file, and it has changed it here, here, and here as well. So these are the kind of facilities that you don't get when you're trying to code it out in a simple notepad or simple text editors. And these are the really powerful benefits that you get when you're using an IDE. Now that that is done, let me just show you another thing, which is the debugging capabilities. So I'll just create another function, print with hello. And all I'll have to do here is I have to print, and I'll do some Python code here. I'll format the string, and inside the format all I have to do is pass in name. So what it will do, it will take a look at the string, print hello, comma, and then takes a look at a variable. I can remove this as well, and takes a look at the variable named name and prints that for us. Replaces this empty brackets into name. This is what's known as Python string interpolation also. So you can do that as well. And now, just to make it a little more complicated, I'll just create another function, def get config name. And as you can see, as soon as I type this character, which is an opening parenthesis, Pycharm automatically types self, closes the parenthesis, and types a colon for me. And all I have to do is return default config. Save this, go here, and now if I run this, it works fine. We get constructor, we get hello, and instead of doing this, now what I will do is I will print with hello, but I will use the config get default name. And now if I run this, you will see that the execution will be changed a little. We get constructor hello and this. Now if I want to debug this, debugging basically means stepping through the code line by line to see what has changed. Now this is really easy to do, especially in Python. I want to debug from this line, right? So I can, instead of running it, click on debug main, or I can click on debug as well and choose main. As you can see here, if we do that, and that happens, starts debugging, and we get here. As you can see right now, no variables have been declared in memory, so we get nothing. And we get options to step over some code, step into the code, step into to see your code. If it's a library code and you don't want to step into it, then you use this function, which I will do in a moment, and you get to step out. So I want to step into my code and see what happens when this configuration helper gets instantiated. Click here, it opens the file, it gives us the name of the value of the self variable. If I open it, it's giving me the memory location as well. And as you can see, nothing's been initialized as of now. I step in, it prints constructor. If you want to take a look at this, you can take a look at console simultaneously, and you can see constructor has been printed. Now you go ahead, print hello world, take a look at the console, it gets done. Only the config variable has been created. As you can see, there are no variables associated with the config object. And I then step into the function, it returns default config. After that, it steps into the function that we have declared with the print with hello function, prints everything, and then exits, because that was the last line. Everything has been printed, and we have come to the end of our code. So that's how you can debug things. Now that that is done, let me show you something interesting. Let's say that you want to, after going to that, click on settings. There are many settings available for you. You can install some plugins to make changes to the way things work. If you are using Vim as the code editor, then you can install the IDEA Vim plugin. You can change the look at the material themes as well. There are a lot of things that you can install, and these things either upgrade the functionality of some existing feature, or they introduce new features as well. For version control, you can take a look at many other version control systems like Git. If you want to add a GitHub repository, you can do here as well, Mercurial, Subversion. And finally, for our project, we can take a look at Project Interpreter. Right now, we have not installed any package, so we don't have to do anything. If you want to install a package, click on the Add button. And as you can see, it's getting the list of available packages. Let's say that I want to install Flask. This is what the current version is. If I want to install Flask, I can just click on Install Flask. If I want to specify a version, here are the list of available versions. So you can see it's very graphical, very useful. I'm not going to install Flask right now because I'm not going to be using it in this demo, but you can do it if you want. So with that in mind, this is what it looks like. This is what a breakpoint is. So when we were debugging, I put a breakpoint here so that I can just debug my code and the execution will stop here. And from that point on, I can just step into the code. So it's very easy to do if you want to do it. So there are a lot of features that I can go into. This could be a really long demo, But to help you get started, I hope this was quite enough and has whetted your appetite. And if the Python code was not something that you understood, don't worry, I'll guide you to the resources that can help you out. But the intention of this demo was to help you get started with Pycharm, to help you understand how you can use the basic features, how you can customize it to your liking. You can change the theme, you can do a lot of things that you want to do, how you can navigate around the code, how you can debug the code. There are a lot of things that you can do. And with that in mind, let's take a look at what we have next. So whenever I'm trying to learn a new technology or a new tool like Pycharm, a quote that comes to my mind quite often is, an investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to our community site, in which you can create an account and then log in and then post any query that you have regarding any technology. And people who are either at your skill level or have faced the problems that you have faced could help you out with that. You can post code snippets, you can post screenshots, you can post a lot of information about the problem that you're facing, and people will get back to you, and you can create a thread and people will put comment on those threads and will help you understand what the problem is and how you can get after it and how you can solve it. Then we also have a blogging platform. It's the intellipaat.com/blog URL. You can visit our blogs. You can take a look at all the free content and tutorials that are put out by our team. If you're more of a visual person and not more of a reading person, we do have a YouTube channel as well, as you can see, and we provide good content every day. We have content being put out every day by experts in our fields, and they help you understand new technologies and help you get started with new technologies as well. So if you are done with all of these and if you want to get a little deeper understanding of a particular topic, then what I would suggest is, we have a website that is Intellipaat Academy. You can go on that website. The URL is intellipaat.com/academy. From that, you can take a look at a lot of free courses that we are providing. These courses range from different technologies in different fields, from Java to MS Excel to MS SQL. For cloud, you can take a look at AWS and Azure foundations. And you can also take a look at DevOps if you want more in-depth analysis of that. If you want to learn Python for free, you can take a look at that as well. Python for Data Science Foundation. These are all foundational courses to help you get started with the basic understanding that you need to build upon in your future. You can take a look at the reviews. We have a lot of companies that are hiring, and as you can see, these are all the courses that are available. So you can take a look at this. If you are interested in some course, you can take a look at that as well. However, if you're looking for certification, and especially in Python, we have some great courses. One of them is the Python certification training course. There are other courses related to Python, such as Django, data science. You can take a look at a lot of these. So you can talk to us on these numbers if you are interested in learning about new technologies and new courses that we're putting up. This course has a lot of content in it. You can take a look at a lot of things. You can take a look at the content here. We start from the basics. We set up the language for that so that you can understand. We begin by understanding the basic concepts, constructs, object-oriented programming, database connection. Then we'll move on to NumPy, SciPy, and these libraries that allow you to do scientific computation. Then we'll move on to pandas, exception handling, multi-threading, and race conditions. We'll take a look at how to create and use packages and functions, and how you can do web scraping. And finally, we also give you a self-paced course which teaches you about Apache Spark, which is a big data technology. We also have projects. If you want to take a look at the projects in this, you can click on view more and take a look at that. We also have this certificate. As you can see, this certificate could have your name if you choose to enroll in the course. You click on zooming in and you take a look at the course certification here. This certification is valid in many industries, and many companies do value these certificates, ranging from Sony, Mu Sigma to Saint Gobain and TCS and many other companies. You can take a look at the reviews. You can take a look at the frequently asked questions. If you have any questions, then you can take a look at that as well. And if your questions are not answered here in this FAQ section, then I can tell you another way to reach us. But before that, here's a coupon code for you, because you've stuck around with us and you've learned about Pycharm. If you want to buy any course right now, then you can take a look at this coupon code. It's YouTube 30. It'll give you a 30% flat off on any course that you want to take a look at. So you can get in touch with our course advisors and use this coupon code for today, and you can get 30% off. So with that in mind, these are the numbers that you can use to get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us in India, in US. We have a toll-free number. If you are more of an email person, then you can get in touch with us using the email as well. Our course advisors are there to help you out whenever you want. It's 24/7. It's always open. So our course advisors are always going to be there to help you out with any course that you want. And with that in mind, we've come to the end of this session. But before we leave, I'd like to remind you that we have another session, live session coming up on YouTube. As of now, it's about Python only. So you can take a look at it and you can gain a deeper understanding about Python. It'll teach you about the reasons to learn Python, and you can take a look at why you should learn Python and all that. And it'll be available on 5 o'clock on this YouTube channel. So do tune into that if you are interested into learning about Python, or at the very least interested about learning about the reasons why you should learn Python. So with that in mind, we've come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for sticking around with me. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.